Good morning, y'all. We are live on the Falcons podcast. It's just a tick after 9 a.m. on what's going to be a wet Friday morning in Atlanta and much across the Southeast. Lots to get into. My name is Scott Kennedy. I'll be your host today. We go live every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. I say we because usually Nick is with me on Monday and Wednesday, but he takes Fridays off while he is raising his newborn. We'll give him that one. It is another week closer to the NFL draft, and things are getting a little exciting. That said, there's still some free agents out there, and the Atlanta Falcons won't be done in free agency by any stretch of the imagination. There's still some holes to fill on the defensive side of the ball, and you're always looking for help wherever you can get it, and depth wherever you can get it. There was an article yesterday or this week, I think it actually came out Wednesday, big column from Bill Barnwell of ESPN, who is a wordsmith, to say the least. He doesn't get out of bed for less than 3,000 words. So he puts a lot out, and he suggested a perfect fit for the top remaining free agents. And he had one of those, a former Atlanta Falcon going somewhere else, and then someone coming to the Atlanta Falcons. And I didn't particularly like it, to put it nicely. I didn't think, for a couple of reasons. One, I didn't think it was a great fit. Two, it felt like kind of a backhanded compliment, but we'll get into all of that. While the stream is opening up and reaching everybody out there in YouTube land and Facebook land, I want to say hello to some of the folks that have come in here nice and early and gotten this chat started before I even got here. I try and build this stream at 8 a.m. so the chat opens up on YouTube, and people come in all the time nice and early. And Joseph Smith was in first. He says, "Good morning, everyone. Time for coffee and another excellent show." I can promise you the coffee. I'll drink to that. I got my Lion coffee mug, and on the back it says, "More roar in every pour since 1864. Patrick Wiltsey is in Hawaii, and he takes care of us, keeps us well caffeinated. So check out lioncoffee.com. He helps us. See if you can help him. By the way, it's delicious. It really is. So thanks, Joseph, coming in. John Brooks coming in. Love that car. He says, "I wouldn't mind us signing Justin Simmons or Hassan Reddick." And I like what MITM Adamsville says, or we could take them both. We would use them both. Now, Justin Simmons is a free agent. I put him on the cover of today's podcast because he's my idea of a perfect fit is free safety Justin Simmons paired with Jesse Bates back there on the back end. He's multi-time second-team All-Pro, been to the Pro Bowl a couple of times, including this past season. He's a 3 or 4-time Walter Payton Man of the Year nominee for the Denver Broncos. Just exactly the kind of person. He's basically all the reasons I wanted Kyle Hamilton a couple of years ago. He's just older. This is what Kyle Hamilton kind of aspires to be, except winning more football games than Justin was able to in Denver. And then Hassan Reddick would be to be a trade. So, you would have to give up some draft picks or, at least premium pick to try and get him. MITM, I think he had another comment just down it was my Swanker. I'll get to you. And my Swanker, are you Brandon Swank? Are you the one that I get tagged on Facebook, or is that just a coincidence on there? So, I get a lot of, I don't have my notifications on Facebook because it would drive me absolutely berserk. It'd be like trying to go to sleep in a casino in the slot machine area, and I just can't stand all of that noise. So I don't get to them as timely as I would like. I'll get to that one, though, in a second. Real Shaggy has a great question, though. He says, "So are we going to be able to sign another safety to help Bates and AJ out?" Grant is not what we thought he was going to be. I will be very, very surprised if they go in with their top 3 safeties as Jesse Bates. Okay, he's in there. He's number 1. And DeMarco Hellams and Richie Grant. DeMarco Hellams will be here. He's cheap. He plays special teams, did well when called upon last year, but he was a 6th-round pick, if I'm not mistaken. But late day 3 pick that you're hoping that has some upside. And if you get something out of that guy, great. But I don't know that you want to pencil him in as a starter just yet. I think you want, and especially with the safeties available out there, you want to go with a veteran safety and DeMarco Hellams. And I think Richie Grant would be the guy that would be on the way out. The 4th year of those day 2 contracts are not guaranteed. So he's on $3.9 million with, I think, right around a $700,000 dead cap hit. So the Falcons would save just under $3.2 million if they were to move on from Richie Grant. And $3.2 million goes a long way to upgrading a safety. It really does. A $4 million safety is average safety money. I think I looked it up yesterday, and you pay like $4 million would make it the 29th highest paid safety. If you play two safeties, that's 64. 29th makes you just above the middle there. Middle mode, I think. I know mean is average. I always never got the difference between median and mode. But if I'm going down the line on the ranking, it's above the middle line, and he's not playing at above the middle line type of ranking. So I think he's in trouble on that one. Michael Sunrise Ron Keogh coming in. He says, good morning, Scott, on the Falcons podcast. Michael, here's to you. Appreciate you being here today. As always, the support that you show the show on and off of this platform is spectacular. So thank you, Michael. Mike Swanker, come in. This is a good question. I really like this question. And I may come off, I get emotional. I don't mean it to be personal when I'm coming at you, when I have these discussions, my Swanker. But he says, would you prefer Latu because of Jimmy Lake being our defensive coordinator, and it would make sense, or Dallas Turner? For me, these are different discussions, okay? I will answer the second part of this first. I do not draft for coordinators. Period. I don't do it. I do not draft for coordinators. They're gone. I draft guys because I want them for 5 to 10 years. Especially in the first round. If I'm looking at the first round, I want a 10-year guy in the first round. How many defensive coordinators have the Falcons had in the last 10 years? How many offensive coordinators have they had in the last 10 years? They've had 3 defensive coordinators in the last 4 seasons. 3 in the last 4. I do not draft for coordinators. If they're not successful, they're fired. If they are successful, they're promoted. I need scheme-independent players when I'm drafting. If I have to draft to a scheme, they're not good enough. That's how I feel about players. Now, I would rather have Dallas Turner because I like the athleticism. I like the upside there a little bit more than Latu. I like his ability to set the edge a little better than Latu. That said, I ran a mock yesterday. And we'll do one again today before we get out of here. Friday, we'll do some mock drafts. And I traded down not once, but twice. I traded down, I think, to 12 or 13, and then I traded from 13 to 18. I picked up 2 2s and 2 3s to go from 12 to 18, and I drafted Latu. Would I rather have Dallas Turner at 8 or Latu at 8? I'd probably rather have Dallas Turner. Would I rather have Latu and 2/3 and 2 seconds? One of them was a 20-25 second. I'd probably rather have Latu and 4 more day 2 picks. So I think that's a great question. But when it comes to drafting, I don't give a rat's hiney about scheme. I don't, because schemes are going to change often during that guy's career. So I think that's a great question, and it's something I really like talking about with scouting on that, Max Swanker. Good morning, String Guy. Good to see you. Dave Glassman with the hearts. Good morning, Scott, with the coffee. Nick, my friends in the chat. Nick's up. I'm sure he's feeding the baby. Wishing all a fantastic Friday. Here's to you, Red Swarm, for all the positivity. Mark Schrader coming in from Texas. I think, did some of that weather that we're getting miss you? I just looked at, we're supposed to get hit about 2 o'clock today, and it's just coming out of New Orleans. I think Mark's my weather guy in Texas. What he gets, we get about 2-3 days later, and it's gonna get a little nasty here this afternoon. So everybody be safe out there. Probably going to be some pretty good thunderstorms, good spring lightning and stuff. So be careful out there. Hope everybody was okay over there in New Orleans, and it's headed your way. Hopefully no twisters in there in Mississippi and Alabama too, which has been kind of nasty here the last couple of years. So Mark, thank you for the support for the show. You've been with us, Broncos, Falcons, for a long time too. Keeps the lights on, keeps his forehead nice and shiny. So thank you so much. Greg Elrod, he's ready to do some general managing himself. He says, I'd rather buy Justin Simmons and trade down and draft Latu or Verse. Might even double down on a 3-4 edge and a 3-4 defensive end. Yeah, I don't have any problem with 2 edges. And it's hard when I start thinking of free agency. There are defensive backs that are out there that you can get that are available that can help this team. I don't know if that's the case at edge. If I'm going to get my pass rusher now, it better be during the draft. And I'm hard pressed not to come out of this knowing that there's 3 guys that we like, and when I mean me, I mean all of us. I don't know what the Falcons like. But I think for the most part, now we'll all have our favorites. That's okay. But the consensus among the community, at least on this page, was Leatu Latu, Jared Verse, Dallas Turner. Be pretty happy with any one of those 3 guys. Could say, okay, that helps. And if I can come out at 8 and make a trade with one of those quarterback needy teams, because let's say Drake May or JJ McCarthy is still available at 8, and I come out of that spot with 11, 12, or 13, I think it's going to be moot because I think the Vikings are going to hop above the Falcons, and one of those 4 quarterbacks is not going to be available. But if, let's say I can, and I can pick up extra picks and get either Jared Verse, Dallas Turner, or Leatu Latu, I'm pretty happy. I'm pretty happy with that. Again, I'll show you the options. We'll do a mock draft, and PFF's actually gotten pretty stingy with the trade downs because every time I do a trade down, I either get hit up by Minnesota at 11, Denver at 12, or the Raiders at 13, or all 3 of them, and I can never get their 2025 first-round pick for that pick. And I have a feeling if I had a bidding war between those 3 teams, I could pry a 2025 first-round pick from one of them. I really think I could. So, yeah, I don't have any problem, and we'll see the available players on the defensive line, but there's some versatile tweener-type guys that would be maybe a little bit undersized at defensive tackle, but would be pretty good 3-4 edges, or they'd be really quick 4-3 defensive tackles. A guy like Marcus Harris comes to mind from Auburn. Let's see, Keith Randolph over at Illinois, I think could fit the bill there. Guys that can be had on not just, on maybe early day 3, 4th, 5th round to look that direction. But, man, the more and more I go through this, the more I'm convinced, man, you got to get your edge. That said, I did a mock last night, and Marvin Harrison fell to 8. I didn't bother looking to see who else was available. I hit yes, please, and drafted Marvin Harrison. I ran through about 5 of them last night just for fun because, it's like middle-aged, well, what the stuff you used to look at when you weren't middle-aged. It's kind of like that. So thank you, Greg. Certainly appreciate it. I believe, let me see here. Roderick Cook, good to see you. He says afternoon. He's coming in across the pond. Jeff Holton, good morning. Good morning. Zach Powers also in here. Jason, Oblivion Empire, good morning, guys. Hit the like button. Support one of the best hosts on this app. Well, thank you, sir. Let's have a great podcast like always. And Zach Power says, so is it the case that the 49ers traded a 5th for Chase Young, let him walk on free agency, and he gets a signed deal with the Saints, and now the 49ers get a 3rd-round comp pick? Zach, I don't think it would be that high. They might get a comp pick out of it, but it would be based on the compensation that Chase Young get. And Chase Young didn't get a huge contract relative to what edges get, and the Saints put it all in void years again. So, yeah, he's got a $2 million cap hit, and he's got, I think, like 4 void years on that. It's just, I don't know, man. So they wouldn't get a 3rd. I'd be absolutely flabbergasted, shocked if they got a 3rd out of it. They may get their 5th back from it, but I don't think they would get a 3rd. That's a little bit too high. Quentin Caldwell, good morning. Our Tampa Bay fan, good to see you here. Bucks Raising Bolts says, hi, Scott. Jonathan Abril says, I watch every morning you go live. Great show. Well, thank you, Jonathan. It feels like a newer name coming in and saying, hey, so I'm glad you did. Welcome in. Jordan Brown, as Facebook starts opening up, says, good morning, Scott. I enjoyed your article about the perfect fit for Atlanta. Well, thank you, Jordan. Let's get into that just a little bit. Bill Barnwell, he came out and he said the perfect fit. I'm going to share this. And yeah, I do some writing over on allfalcons.com. Many of y'all may not know that, so want to make sure, just pubbing the website a little bit. That is my site, and I do tend to have a little bit more fun with that than I do when I write for some other. I do some writing for some other entities too, and I'm a little more conservative on other people's sites than I am on my own. I'm not afraid to have a little fun. But they said Jamal Adams. Bill Barnwell says Jamal Adams. I'll drop the link in here for you too, in case you're interested. But why is Jamal Adams available? He says a deep safety market and a brutal run of injuries. Things didn't go well as Pete Carroll company planned. He did have 9.5 sacks his first season, but 0 the next 3. Teams, most notably Kyle Shanahan's 49ers, exploited him in coverage. Oh, great. Injury prone, unproductive, and a liability in coverage. He sounds like an Atlanta Falcons player already. Yes, it did. That's the cynicism I like to put in there every once in a while, because the free agents that Terry Fontenot has signed, especially last year, were all hits. They were all hits. But, safety hasn't exactly. When you start going through who are the best safeties to play for 60 years of the Atlanta Falcons, you really have to think hard. It hasn't been a really great position. I can do running back. I can do linebackers. I can do, I can do even offensive linemen. I can do quarterbacks. There's been some good quarterbacks play for the Atlanta Falcons. Some really good wide receivers. Some good corners. Some really good corners. One of the best to ever play, if not the best to ever play the game. But safeties, 1 season, 2 seasons of Keanu Neal before he turned into this guy until he got hurt and was a liability in coverage. Eugene Robinson for a season in the late 90s, 98, he was really good, came down from the Packers. And then obviously, give me one more season of Jesse Bates at that level, and I might say 2 seasons of Jesse Bates is the best the Falcons have ever had at the safety position. So then you ask, what's the upside here? It's like, well, he could be a hybrid player and maybe rush the passer if he can get back to his old form. I'm like, that's your perfect fit. What are you saying here? That the Falcons just stink and we're going to give you leftovers? It's kind of hit me the wrong way. I'm like, a perfect fit for this team. And I went on to say who I thought the perfect fit at safety was for this team in free agency. I said Justin Simmons. Justin Simmons is everything that I am looking for in a veteran safety to come with this team. He's outstanding in coverage, great leadership. You see the difference when, and Bill Barnwell did talk about this. This is why he's a great fit for the Falcons. How much better the Broncos were with him on the field just because of his leadership and saying, okay, this is what to look for. Line up over here. Do all of these things pre-snap, just like a quarterback. Justin Simmons is a perfect fit for this team. Now, I've said $7 to $9 million will probably be what Justin Simmons ends up signing for. That's roughly half of what he was due to make in Denver this year, which is why he's on the open market. He's 30 and change, so like 30 and a half, 31 years old. Still young enough and still plays at a high enough level. And if you can't get your safety, I don't even think if he'll last to the draft. He might last to the draft. I'm double talking here because I'm not sure. What do you want to use on what kind of draft pick do you want to use on a safety when I could get one of these veterans for cheap? And $7 million still is relatively cheap. How much money do the Falcons have in available cap? Not much, but they could create some. $7 million would be how much they would save for the most part if they move on from Taylor Heinicke. How about a Taylor Heinicke for Justin Simmons trade? Yeah, I could do that. People say, well, who's going to be backup quarterback? It doesn't matter. I hate to say it, but it really doesn't matter if you've got, if it's a non-rookie. I'd love a rookie that's developing. That's fine. But veteran backup quarterbacks, man, if your starter goes down, how many teams out there, they're not screwed if their starter goes down? Buffalo Bills, Kansas City Chiefs, Cincinnati Bengals did okay. Basically, if you got better because your backup Gardner Minshew did a good job for the Colts, they still didn't make the playoffs. And there might be an exception out there, I'm sure. Joe Flacco did okay, but the Cleveland Browns, again, they're not exactly Super Bowl contenders. I don't particularly care about the backup quarterback unless it's a rookie. I really don't. And then he's a development project. You bring in Spencer Rattler, then I care because I think he could be a guy of the future. Joe Milton, yes, I care. Taylor Heinicke, I don't care. I don't care if it's one of these retreaded guys that is making 20% of what starters make these days. I don't care. So anyway, lots of things going on in that conversation right there. Harry Marshall, good morning. Good to see you. Leon Mapstone, he's in as well. Daryl Brown says, rise up. We are up. I'm and the coffee is kicking in. So we're getting up. That's for sure. Leonard Smith, good morning. Great. Ready for another great show. Well, glad you're here. It's better already, Leonard. Quentin Caldwell, he's here as well. Greg Elrod, good morning, Ben. He came in with a super chat too, all that. May Trigg, hopefully I didn't mess up your name too bad. Good morning, Scott and Nick. Love your streams. Thank you. Appreciate you being here. Tony Bradley, we need Simmons and Reddick. Restructure Heineke or cut him. Cut Hughes, and that clears cap space. Yeah, if the Falcons wanted to come up with $10 to $15 million of cap space for free agents, they can. I promise you, they can. Harry Marshall Wood says TV on YouTube. Yeah, I watch YouTube on my Roku a lot. It's pretty sweet. My Senior Bowl stuff is in 4K. The only 4K monitors I have are on my big TVs. I don't have a 4K. I've got a big 32-inch monitor in front of me, but it's not 4K. So I still don't even get to see how good that is. Sterling Woods, this is where we're coming in. This was a perfect fit. So we may have answered this question already, but would you sign Jamal Adams? Okay, I just got done saying all of those things, didn't I? Would I sign Jamal Adams? Yes, for dirt cheap, non-guaranteed. Y'all have heard me say it before. Would I take a chance on insert blank here, insert name here? Yeah, I would. I would figure it out, run him through the medicals, see how it's going. But I'm not signing him to a guaranteed deal that would have any type of dead cap money next year that I couldn't move on from if he's truly washed up. I wouldn't. Would I be interested in Jamal Adams? Yes, I would, for all the reasons of the upside and stuff. Do I think he is a perfect fit for this team? No, I do not. I think he is a huge risk, but you limit your risk by how much you're willing to invest in him. If I'm penciling him in as my number 2 safety, I'm scared to death. If I'm bringing him in to compete on a nothing deal because he's already made a ton of money and he's been hurt and he wants to come join the Atlanta Falcons because he's boys with Jesse Bates, sure, I'm interested. But I don't want to count on Jamal Adams. Would I take a chance on Jamal Adams? Yeah, I'd be okay with that. Now, if I want a safety to come in and start, I want Justin Simmons. Let me see here. Andrew Newman, good to see you. Good morning. Happy Friday. Jess Canady, he's in here as well. Curtis Case, there we go. And then Kevin Spires, thank you. I have to look this up. Mean, thank you. Mean is average. That one's easy. I knew that one for sure. Median, the middle value of all the samples. So the median is, if I go to 1 to 30, the median is 15.5, right? So the median number for the safeties that I was talking about is roughly $4 million, $3.5 to $4 million. That's the median pay for safeties, for average safeties, right there, right there. Now the average is add them all up and divide by the total number, and that gets skewed by the guys making 20, 21, $22 million at the very top. And then mode is the one that occurs the most. And why did they call it middle mode? That's what I remember from being a kid. See, that's what I was always confused on. Mode is the one that occurs the most. So thank you, Kevin. Needed some math help today for sure. Archangel, good morning. Beat me up, Scott. I'm not quite as shiny today. We need the lights on a little brighter. Archangel likes to talk about that. Roy Osborne, again, saying good morning. How you have your Lion coffee? Black with 1/2 little tiny scoop of sweetener in it. And I saw Quentin Caldwell was giving a shout out for Lion coffee as well. So I might just cut this up and send it to him and say, hey, Patrick, send this to your bosses. See if they want to sponsor the show. A morning show with coffee. Do you think that makes sense? I wasn't a 4.0, but I was pretty good in logic. That makes sense for sure. Roy Osborne, apologies, says good morning, Scott. I just read that one. I'll read it twice and screw your name up both times. Chris Walker, morning, Scott, and everyone watching. With us going to a 3-4, will linebacker be a need? I still think you'll want to have 4, but your 4th linebacker is going to be dirt cheap and somebody you take a chance on as a UDFA or a $1 million free agent. 7th round pick. I don't consider linebacker a need for this team. You got Caden Ellis, Nate Landman, and Troy Anderson. You got 3 for 2 spots. I like it. I don't think linebacker is a need on this team. And basically the two guys were playing all year last year too. The two linebackers were on the field a lot. Outside linebacker and edge is absolutely a need for this team, and it's been a need for this team since its existence. So you have Arnold Ebiketie that you can count on. And why did I think that Lorenzo Carter kept signing 1-year deals? So if he's on the list, then he can do a job. I don't mind Lowe. But he would be, Lorenzo Carter. He's on the books for $4.75 with a $1 million dead cap. You get Hassan Reddick, there's $3.5 million that you can find too to clear up space. Again, when your dead cap is lower than your salary cap number, you're vulnerable. You're vulnerable. There's money that can be made there on your contract. So Lorenzo Carter and Arnold Ebiketie, to me, speaking of 3-4, the guys that the Falcons have, to me, are good 3 and 4. See what I did there? I don't think they're 1 and 2s. And I don't know that you'll be able to get 1 and 2 this year. Hopefully the Falcons, I have a hard time not coming out of the first round with an edge. And there's my one, hopefully. If you were able to make a move for Hassan Reddick, and again, I never saw anybody really that I super trust in this industry report that, and there's a monster dead cap hit. It would go away some with depending on how much salary the Falcons took on, but he's got 3 void years and a $20 million dead cap too, but they're not going to cut him. Keith and Ellen Johnson, good morning, Scott. Thanks for keeping us updated. I try, y'all have Twitter, you can keep updated. What I do is I like the conversation. What does this mean? Taking the thing, read the tea leaves and try and make predictions. To me, that's fun. I got into the draft for that reason. When I'm watching these guys, my first draft that I really started paying attention to was 1988. And then I'd rewatch them. I'd watch a season, then I'd rewatch the drafts just to see who's doing their homework. The prognostication. It's fun. Zach Powers says, if the Falcons end up with Latu and Darius Robinson, that would be a dream fit. Going back to Chris Walker talking about the 3-4 and the needs there. If I got Latu and I got Darius Robinson, I just took one side of my defense. I mean, I could play them on different sides, I know. But I got my edge and I got my big defensive lineman there too. It gives me a little flexibility depending on how ready Grady Jarrett is. It's on paper, it would be an upgrade on Zach Harrison, but Zach Harrison was playing really well. So you've got competition there in that spot. It would be a solid Calais Campbell replacement. That said, Calais Campbell, I mentioned earlier that there was top free agents, perfect fits. Calais Campbell was on this list, and Bill Barnwell said the perfect fit would be the Eagles. I loved having Calais Campbell here. I loved having Cordero Patterson here. I loved watching them play, and I would be very happy to have them, to watch them. Keith Brugman says, good morning, Scott. I have a scouting question. When do scouts finish their job on a class, hand over the information, and move to the next class? It's ongoing, Keith. So people used to ask me all the time, Keith, when do you start watching a prospect? When do you start watching? And I'd basically say whenever they show up. So when I was doing this, I first heard about Donovan Tate when he was in 7th grade. And he ended up being a baseball player. He was Lars Tate's kid. He was a running back from the University of Georgia. And I believe he ended up in the NFL too. And right now, as I'm doing this, I'm watching more baseball. I watch youth baseball at a very high level. My son's pretty good and has been around some of the top players in the country through playing with and playing in organizations that they're in. I saw DJ McClendon, that's Dexter McClendon's son. Dexter was at Clemson. I always have Florida State in my head for some reason, but he was at Clemson. He played like 8 or 9 years in the NFL. He married a track star. I think I've got this right. A track star from Florida State whose brothers are like 6'6". So DJ right now is an 8th grader at Buford High School. He's in 9th grade now. 9th grader. No, he's not. He's an 8th grader, and I think he's playing junior varsity. I think he's playing junior varsity baseball as an 8th grader because he's a year behind my son. He's a month younger, but my son's right on the deadline. Long story short, I saw DJ McClendon at 10 years old. Fast forward a few years, 4 years. Now he's an 8th grader playing junior varsity at Buford High School. He's 6'4", with a 90-mile-an-hour fastball and power to spare. Home run monster. And he's throwing 90 miles an hour right now at 6'4". You pass that. You start as soon as you see them. So you don't really ever start on a next class. One of the questions yesterday, Keith, why would the Denver Broncos go to a pro day? Well, you're meeting some of the juniors too, if they're not interested in Caleb Williams. Well, there's a couple guys there that they might be interested in that aren't Caleb Williams, but there's younger guys there too. So you don't really ever start the next class. It just kind of all continues in together. And while I'm scouting this guy, I'm watching Caleb Williams or I'm watching Jordan Addison. I'm like, oh, who's this quarterback? There was another little old story, and I'll get back to you. There was a wide receiver, little wide receiver at Nice High School down in Jacksonville, Florida. You may have heard of it. He sent his recruiting tape out to the entire world. Check this out. This was before Huddle and it was probably before YouTube, but it was before video was readily available. So everybody's getting this kid's tape. Wow. That big lefty quarterback is awesome. He was a year behind him, and that was Tim Tebow. So you never really stop or start. You just kind of keep it going. And then frankly, you regrade yourself to where did I make these mistakes? I love this guy. Why did he miss? And I want to know why I missed so I can get better. So you never really stop. You don't really start and stop. It's a continuing thing. It's kind of hard to explain. Hopefully I did a decent job there and didn't bore you all to death. Trading down isn't a good option. First, you have to find a team willing to come up that's not too far down, and your guy might be gone. Smart ride, it can be a good option. And frankly, the last several years, the state of the Falcons roster, I really would have liked to have seen trade downs. Maybe not so much last year. I probably would have stayed at 8 and taken Jalen Carter, taken a risk there. But you can't tell me that you wouldn't have taken that 3 first-round pick deal for Kyle Pitts in 2021 when the San Francisco 49ers moved up to 3. I would have taken that in 2021 with the state of this Falcons franchise in a heartbeat. Your guy. I can find more guys. I can. Again, we go back to how far. I don't want to move back to a certain spot where I feel good about this guy. Oh, well, crap. I moved back from 8 to 13. I need an edge. Well, at 9, 10, and 11, Jared Verse, Dallas Turner, and Leatu Latu all went. Well, damn it. Okay. Well, I'll take Terrion Arnold. I'll take Nate Wiggins. I can get my corner in that spot too. For everything that goes up, someone's got to come down. So if I feel like I've got 6 guys and I'm willing to move down 5 spots, then I'm willing to move down. It makes sense. So again, we talk about a horizontal list. I've got all these guys kind of graded the same. If I've got 5 guys I kind of like the same, then moving down 4 spots makes a lot of sense. And if you can get into a bidding war at the quarterback position for a quarterback, and I can get 3 teams, I can make out like a bandit. So again, saying trading down isn't a good option, that's a blanket statement that I don't agree with. Trading up, trading down, there's different circumstances all the time. When people ask me, what do you think of Terry Fontenot's first year with the Atlanta Falcons? I answered, I want to know what he was offered for 4 to move down, because that was always my number one option for that pick with the state of the Falcons roster. Salary cap problems, holes everywhere, that you needed trenches, you needed a quarterback, you needed everything, and you went with a tight end. When you didn't have a defense, and I'm not just saying a defensive line, you didn't have a defense. Your offensive line was a shambles. Trading down would have made a lot of sense there if you got anything of value at all. So just depends. Pamela Johnson saying, good morning, Scott. Good morning to you, Pamela. Welcome. Join us. Talking weather. Robbie says it's crazy rain in Florida right now. If you go to weather.com and click on the map and hit play, so it goes through, there's like 3 systems, west, southeast, and just north of Atlanta. And if you hit play, all of them grow. It looks like a virus. All of them grow, and you get hit from weather from three different areas. So very, we're gonna get some rain here in Atlanta. Ashley Campbell, good to see you. Another one from across the pond. Ashley, who's your team of across the pond? You know, we're suffering Blues fans right now. I've said the Scott Kennedy curse, the Skinnedy curse, is not nearly as well known as the Bambino, but it is awfully powerful. I've even tanked Chelsea with my curse. Jeff says, how about Scott Case? Talking about safeties. Scott Case was okay. Longtime Falcon. Was he? I mean, it was tough to be. And again, that was 80s, and 80s were awful for Atlanta. I'm wondering, he made one Pro Bowl. He was there a long time, from 22 to 32. He played 11 seasons in Atlanta and was more of a thumper. And it was hard to really gauge how good a secondary player was. You know, we could tell how good William Andrews was. We knew how good Gerald Riggs was back then. But Scott Case, interception. He did have a 10 interception season, and that was more than double anything else he ever did. But he was a good safety for Atlanta. Was he, great? I don't know. It's, like I said, it was hard to tell. They lost so many games in his tenure there, from 84 to 94 in Atlanta. Well, they make the playoffs once in 91 in his 11 seasons in Atlanta. So it was tough. And yes, Eugene Robinson had a great season right up until the very last day of the season. Thanks, Eugene. Going out and making a fool of yourself the night before the Super Bowl. But yeah, I don't carry grudges. No, not really. It's only been 25 years. 35. I have to carry the one on that. It's been almost 26 years. So we're working on 30 years ago on that one. Zach Power says there are decent edge options in the second, like Darius Robinson, Marshawn Neal, and Adisa Isaac. I think they're a lot closer to the first round edges than the gap between the wide receivers. I think the gap at the wide receivers, I disagree on this one. Darius Robinson's not an edge. He's a 3-4 D end or a 4-3 hybrid tackle end, because he's 290-something pounds. He's not an edge. Marshawn Nealon is okay. He got handled pretty well at the Senior Bowl. Adisa Isaac, I like him, probably the best of this bunch for edges, but I disagree that there's the gap between the top wide receivers. I think the guys in the second round at wide receiver are more sure things to be productive NFL guys than the defensive linemen, the edges in the second round. I feel like when I go through a mock draft, and we'll go through it, and I look at wide receivers that are available in the second and third, I'm like, yes, please, yes, please, yes, please, yes, please. And I hit edge, I'm like, ugh, no, I don't want these guys here. Not compared to the wide receivers, not compared to Ricky Pearsall or Ladd McConkey. Even Johnny Wilson, 6'6", 240 pounds of 4.5 wide receiver. So I feel like I've got to get my edges early. And, we've talked about trading back up into the second round. And Nick and I will do that next week, into the first round. Pair in a second and third and see if you can get into the back end. And maybe if you go corner early, maybe I can get Chop Robinson or Leatu Latu in the back end of the first. Maybe. So we'll see. Jerry, hopefully I hit on this one. He says, how can we sign Justin Simmons? Seems like we don't have enough money to do so. Jerry, there's very easy cap maneuvers that can be made with current contracts to clear up the money to sign Justin Simmons. I think they would be able to find the money to, if they needed to find $20 million to find Justin Simmons money and Hassan Reddick money, I think they could do it. Plus, you see the initial hit on contracts is cheap if you sign in a multi-year deals. So let's say I said, I'll split the difference and say he's $8 million a year. Okay. Let's say he's 31 years old. I sign him to a 3-year, $25 million deal with 10 guaranteed. I pay him $2 million in salary. I split the 10 across 3 years. He's got a $5 million cap hit now. $5 million cap hit this year. Same way Kirk Cousins' contract is very affordable for the Atlanta Falcons. People like to see the, oh my God, 4 years, $180 million. Are you out of your minds? No. I know how the game is played, and I know that agents have a vested interest in getting the biggest number out there, and the media that reports it have a vested interest in keeping a good relationship with the agents and having the sensationalized clickbait headline of 4 years, $180 million. Dig into it. It's a 2-year, $100 million contract with 2 years of options that knocks the cap hit down to only I know, but it's relatively speaking, only $25 million in 2024 and only $40 million in 2025. Both of those numbers, neither one of them will be in the top 10 of quarterbacks in their respective years. It puts them about 14 this year, and I think it'll put them between 11, 12, 13 next year once some of these new deals get done. Because Dak Prescott's not on that list right now because he's a free agent. Tua will get a new contract. I think there's another rookie that I haven't accounted for, but you can lower the cap numbers initially and make it affordable by stretching it out a little bit if you're willing to take a small dead cap hit. So can be done, absolutely can be done. Padre coming in. Good morning, Scott. The offseason and Fontenot and Morris's approach to it is confusing me. Expand on that. If I see some questions, I'll go on that, because right now it's been get your quarterback, get more speed on offense. That's been the approach right now. And so far it's worked. So the one move that I have a question on was, could you have done better with Taylor Heineke's contract? And you still could. You can still restructure that and give him an extension. If you wanted to keep Taylor Heineke, I was for giving him an extension and lowering his cap hit, because he was on 9. Let me see if that's still the case. It may have come down a little bit. Where the hell did Heineke go? I don't know why I can find every number. Taylor Heineke, he's on 9 right now with a dead cap of 3.3. It was 2. So when his roster bonus kicked in, it went from a dead cap of 2 to 3.3. So on this contract, if you were to move on, you would save just under $6 million instead of $7 million, but it's still a possibility. But the offseason approach so far has been solve the quarterback, get faster on offense. They've done that. They've brought in a couple sub 4.4 guys at wide receiver and gotten a guy that can sling it to them. So we will see how that goes. String Guy says, if Atlanta wants Simmons, they probably need to sign him soon. Denver could re-sign him to a lower contract unless there's bad feelings because of the Russ situation. String Guy, I don't think there's really any chance he comes back to Denver. The rebuild on it, he's going to want to take a chance on a winning team, which isn't necessarily the Atlanta Falcons either. But the Denver Broncos have signaled that they're in it for a rebuild. A heartfelt goodbye from Denver Broncos on social media and a heartfelt goodbye from Justin Simmons. He ain't going back to Denver. I'll be absolutely shocked. Zach says, I want to live in a world where inside linebacker, middle linebacker is not devalued and see Dallas Turner play inside. He'd be the greatest inside linebacker prospect in 10 years. We'll see. Yeah, we'll see. Micah Parsons was a pretty good one too. So to remember on that. Winston Thornton says, morning, Scott. What's the second biggest hole for us to fill in the draft or free agency? That's a good question, Winston. Number one, to me, and hopefully everybody on here, the biggest hole right now is edge. Second biggest hole, cornerback safety. I like the options a little better at cornerback than I do at safety right now. I might say safety. And that's why I have the perfect fit for being this team. And the good news is solving safety can be cheap. Shouldn't be overly expensive. Second round pick should get you a starter. Third round pick should get you a starter if you get the right guy. If you need to address it that way. Oh, the second biggest hole. I'll tell you what, the sneaky need on this one, though, is right tackle. If Caleb McGarry reverts back to pass blocking form of the first 3 years of his career, all of a sudden the biggest need on this team could be edge, right tackle. So Storm did a good job last year. He's been re-signed. But when we've talked about 4 quarterbacks jumping up into the top 7, there's 3 primo receivers out there, Marvin Harrison, Neighbors, and Rome Odunze. That's 7. The Falcons pick 8. That means somebody drops. That means one of those, I think the Elite Eight guys that they've been called, somebody drops to 8. The top prospect on a lot of boards on that would be Joe Alt, offensive tackle, Notre Dame. That would be a pretty unpopular pick, I believe, for Falcons fans if they took Joe Alt. But who needs an offensive tackle? There's my trade down scenario. I got all 3 edges still on the board, and I don't necessarily want Joe Alt. I want to come down. I want to move down a few spots. 9, 10, 11. I can guarantee if I move to 11, I get one of those three edge rushers. If I move down a little bit farther and all 3 are gone, okay, well, let's see. Then I'll go Terrion Arnold and sew up my cornerback spot opposite A.J. Terrell. And I picked up another second rounder that I'm going to use to trade back up into the back end of the first and get my edge and get Chop Robinson because the other guys are gone. So it's going to be fun. It is. I said that it's hard for Atlanta Falcons fans to get their hopes up, but they're in a good spot. There's not a ton of holes left on this team. The players that they're putting out there on paper are talented, and you've got a lot of good options in the draft. Okay, let's go to work. Robert Blackman, good morning. I want to know when the Falcons are going to get serious about getting an edge rusher. What's the first day of the draft? April what? NFL draft starts April 27th. What's the first day? NFL draft. Damn it. NFL draft starts on April 25th, April 27th. They get serious, Robert, about getting their edge rusher on April 25th. First round. Maybe 1, maybe 2. We've talked about them coming back into the back end of the first. I'll be very surprised if they don't come out of the first round. Again, maybe I trade back up and I get 2 first-round picks. I'll be very surprised if they don't come out of the first round with an edge rusher. Curtis K says, we need a strong backup quarterback. Don't like that we're putting all our chips in on Cousins after he's been injured. Curtis Case, is Taylor Heineke that guy? No, he's not. And there's so many resources put into a team into the quarterback position that nobody really has a contending level backup quarterback. It doesn't happen. So that's my point on that one. So, when you need a strong backup QB, do those exist? Except for, again, rookies that you may have drafted that are waiting their turn or whatnot. I don't know that they really exist. There's exceptions. I know. Well, what about? Yes, I know there's what abouts out there, but you take a look at any of the real contenders. If their starter goes down, you're in trouble. Somehow San Francisco is good enough that it doesn't matter who's starting. That's one of those exceptions. So, John, going back to appreciate the comment though, Curtis. I'm not building a team. I'm not sacrificing other parts of my team for the backup quarterback. Is my point on this. And if I had a choice between $7 million for Justin Simmons or $7 million for Taylor Heineke, I know where I'm spending that money on that one. John Roberts says cap space right now, none. It's like $2 million. So you would have to do some. You'd have to do some accounting on some guys, which can be done. You start looking at dead caps versus caps. Grady Jarrett has $11 million of flexibility in his contract. Caleb McGarry even has $3 million on his. There's guys that you don't see flexibility on, like Jake Matthews. You could restructure him to a certain extent. I'm tired of that happening, though. There's $6 million on Taylor Heineke. And again, not a ton of these are underwater. They've done a really good job, Terry Fontenot, of getting the finances in order. Lorenzo Carter, there's $3 million there. Richie Grant, there's $3.2 million there. Cornerback Mike Hughes, who's penciled in as one of the starters, there's $3 million there. You're not getting rid of Drew Dahlman. Ogundeji, hopefully he comes back, but he's on that fourth-year deal like Richie. He hasn't been the same. Do I even say he hasn't been the same? He hasn't been very good. How's he going to make this team? There's $3 million there. So there's money to be had. There is. And yeah, Quentin, math. I know. I'm not supposed to do math in Publix. Really like it. Harry Marshall Wood says many edges will also be linebackers. It's kind of edge rusher and outside linebacker are kind of one and the same these days. I get a sip of coffee. My throat's starting to hurt. The outside linebacker is the edge rusher. So if you go 3-4, you're talking about your OLBs in the 3-4. Those are edge guys. And if you go 4 down, whoever's walking up to the line, they're outside guys for the most part. Harry Marshall Wood, we need a huge space-eating nose tackle. I'll tell you what, when I do mocks, T'Vondre Sweat is there a lot for me. And he is a huge space-eating nose tackle. Huge. 360 pounds of huge, for sure. Michael Tran says, I'd like to move back to 11, 12, or 13 and get an extra second or third. That would be great. Then get the best remaining edge, wide receiver, tackle, all 3 in the first round. First 3 rounds, absolutely. Dave Wanstedt coming in for 888 Dr. Pepper, evaluated Dallas Turner. He didn't see a top 10 pick. He'll probably be good, not exceptional edge. Poor against the run, lack strength. He's not another Will Anderson. A good edge rusher would be a huge upgrade for this team. Bud Dupree was solid, not much of a pass rushing threat. And before you go that way, it was poor Stephen Means. Just terrible. Gremlin says, this is the same defense that allowed 37 points from Fields and 48 points from Carr. Why we haven't addressed edge, cornerback, strong safety is beyond me. I think it's the draft this time. I really do. They wanted to get quarterback. You've put a lot into your offense and skill players, but you didn't have a driver. So I bought a nice car, but I don't want to hand it to my 14-year-old. So went the quarterback route, and Gremlin has this team so far, I said last year they've built an offense, they bought a defense. Offense is built. It really is for the most part. You're always looking to do things. You're always looking to improve this position, that position, upgrade where I can. Marvin Harrison falls to me at 8. Yes, I'm taking him. You're always looking. But the money was spent last year on the defense, and it was spent well. Onyemata, Ellis, Jesse Bates, Calais Campbell, Bud Dupree, all those guys hit. Even the trade for Jeffrey Okudah was an upgrade. All those guys hit. Now it's time to go defense on the draft. It's time to build for the long term on the defense, and there's a good draft to do it. So on that note, I'm still I'm way behind on this one. I'm coming down the comments, but I like to say hello to everybody coming in. Like James, he says, good morning, Scott. I totally agree. Get an edge for once, please. They're here. They're available on this one. So, on a different article on All Falcons, I've given the Falcons the benefit of the doubt in the last 3 drafts on not getting an edge rusher. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean I agreed with their picks. That's okay. We're not always going to agree. But this gaping need at edge, there just wasn't the guy there. Micah Parsons, I know. Micah Parsons was not an edge coming out. He was an inside linebacker who had flexibility, or he wouldn't have gone all the way to 11. He would have been higher like Will Anderson. And in a redraft, he goes second. So I don't mind that one. The next year, no, not really. Aiden Hutchinson was really good. You're talking Trevon Walker. Those guys were all gone. There wasn't one at 8. Last year, defensive line, you could have gone, Jalen Carter, but not edge again. I think the next edges end up being like George Karlaftis. Lucas Van Ness went a little bit farther down. There were some questions about him. That's why he slips. This year, that there's not that excuse there. At 8, there's good, viable options at 8. If you pass on an edge at 8, you don't have the excuse of, well, we didn't really like the guys there. There's guys there. So what do y'all think? I'm gonna scroll down to the bottom here. Y'all wanna do a mock draft on this one? Let me see here. Just some of the comments in here. I agree as far as, Chris Walker says, Terry is so much better than Dimitroff at cap management. I hate to think how many years were wasted due to his competence. I really appreciate the job that Terry has done. Yeah, and, coming from the Saints, I don't want to see him do it like the Saints. I don't want to always be kicking the can down the road. I want to get it under control so that you have more flexibility. I don't want – and the last of those big contracts, Chris, is that where you're underwater on. is Jake Matthews. And one more year of Jake Matthews after this year, he's got a huge, actually it's been knocked down. So it's down to 21 million, but he still has a big dead cap hit at 34. After this year, you have $10 million of flexibility on Jake Matthews' contract. And he's still playing at a good level. You know, what's bad is when you have that you're financially married to a guy with a dead cap hit and he can't play. Jake Matthews is still playing at a good level. Zach Powers says, if Darius Robinson can't play outside, then Trice really shouldn't. Trice should probably be a defensive end. Yeah, maybe. Michael Lewitzki, I don't like the 3-4 defense. It's horrible. I don't get too caught up in them, honestly, because they change around so much. Your base defense, you might see on first down, and then you're going nickels and dimes on second and third down. So there's so many sub packages that I honestly don't worry too much about. What's our base defense? I want to know, what are your options when you go to different packages? Grady Jarrett gives you options to go nose guard, which I don't particularly like, but he can do it. And then, deep nose tackle if you're going to play a 4-man front. And in a 3-man front, he's a really good end. He can play end in that spot. I like that flexibility. Zach Harrison can play some defensive end, 3-4. Darius Robinson would be a great flexible type of defensive lineman. So good things on that. And unfortunately, Michael says Falcons will screw it up like always. I know. There's, like I said, I couldn't help myself writing that up yesterday about Jamal Adams. Injured, no production, and liability and coverage. Yeah, that sounds about right. Sounds like a perfect fit for the Atlanta Falcons, Bill. Didn't like it. So let me see here. And Kenneth says, he's agreeing with me on this one. We do need a tackle because Matthews is getting old, and who knows on McGarry. Right now you think you're okay, and you are okay at left tackle. I really like taking Roger Rosengarten, Patrick Paul, Christian Jones down 3rd round, 4th round in that neighborhood as a next tackle. But if all of those guys rise, someone's got to fall. And that guy that falls could end up being Joe Alt. You want to solve tackle for, the next 10 years? I'm going to pop a lozenge in my mouth. Apologies. Michael says Terry's on the hot seat in my books. We'll see. Again, I wasn't surprised. What's interesting, I think the whole Justin Fields thing is very interesting. The Falcons passed on Justin Fields, and, the Falcons get named as one entire entity. They're not. There's different voices in the room. Arthur Smith has a voice. Terry Fontenot has a voice. I'm willing to give $100 million guaranteed to Kirk Cousins, and I'm willing to give $12 million a year guaranteed to an underproducing Chicago Bears wide receiver, while Justin Fields goes to play for Arthur Smith. I think we got a pretty good idea who didn't like Justin Fields now in Atlanta on that one. Very, very interesting. Michael, well, this is a conversation we'll have for a different day. What was Dimitrov supposed to do? We'll get in on this. Dimitrov was not a very good general manager. We'll go on that one on another day. I got big problems with that one. And that started early. I want to do a mock draft. What do you think? I want to do a mock draft. Let me expand this one out. I'm using PFF. I'm back to PFF because they've changed some around. And I think it's a lot more realistic on this one. And let me see. Share screen. Stephen B says Justin Fields has been overrated since high school. Stephen, you wouldn't be a Georgia fan, would you? It's a lot of bad feelings. Not saying you're wrong. One of the phrases I like to use is I might be biased. It doesn't mean I'm wrong. But that's a comment I hear from a lot of Dogs fans about Justin Fields. PFF has gone to the public. Y'all can see that okay? Somebody give me a thumbs up in the chat if you can see that okay. And draft for needs, I knocked that down just a little bit. I put positional value up. I do the public board. I feel like this has been better for us. And let's see, 7 rounds. We'll go through 7 rounds. Atlanta Falcons here. We'll go fast, so there will not be any trade up opportunities because it ends up going too fast. Thanks, Cedric. Thank you, Quentin. We'll hit enter draft. We're on the clock. We hit start. And ahead of us at 8, Caleb Williams, Drake May, Jaden Daniels, Joe Alt at 4, Marvin Harrison at 5, JJ McCarthy, and Roma Dunze. So if what goes up, someone's got to come down. That makes Malik Neighbors right there at 4. He's the 4th highest rated guy. If all those guys are going to go up, then someone's got to come down. We made the discussion in our last mock draft about Malik Neighbors, and I get it. I understand. And, everybody wants here. We did this last time. And I'm just going to explore some trade options again, because I'm sitting here and I've got edges I like with Dallas Turner, Jared Verse, and Leatu Latu a little bit farther down. Let me see my trade options at 15. So if I went to 15, from 8 to 15, I want another first rounder, and they don't like that too much. So if I were to be able to go from 8 to 15 and get a 2025 number 1 pick, I'd be interested. Now, let me throw in around 7 from 2025 because they say no, and I disagree. If I'm going to move back that far, well, to hell with you then. We're not doing a trade. Who else wants to trade with me? And then when they come back from there, the next pick is 21. I don't want to go back that far. I really don't. I don't want to go back that far. Let's see. If I take that 7 and turn it into a 6 in 2025, offer again. Nope. All right, to hell with you. We're going to be back on the clock. So I'm going to draft a player. I did not move down on this one because if I'm going to move down that far from 8 to 15, it's going to cost you a number 1. It's absolutely going to cost you a number 1 because I think you've lost the ability to get a bidding war going with the Vikings, Broncos, and Raiders at 8 because the Giants took J.J. McCarthy here and Drake May and Jaden Daniels. The top 4 are off the board. Top 4 quarterbacks. Jess says trade with Denver. You've lost that ability for the most part with those other quarterbacks going off the board. And I think that's how it actually will play out because I think Minnesota will try and move up here or here to 4-5 and try and get one of those quarterbacks. The only way you guarantee to do it is to go to 4 and maybe not get hopped by someone else. Malik Neighbors, we've discussed this a lot, why you could do this, because he's that good. I still want to go Dallas Turner in this one. I want to get my edge. I know they've got him at 16. That's about as low as I've seen him. I want to get my edge here. The trade down options weren't great, and I understand the idea of Malik Neighbors. And what's funny, when I do this and post it, the people who watch after the fact are pissed that you took a wide receiver. What are you doing taking another wide receiver? And the chat live, they're all about that Malik Neighbors. I get it on both sides. I really do. In this case, I am going to take Dallas Turner. I'm going to get my edge. Because, again, if I were to go Neighbors on this one, if I were to go Dallas Turner, or if I were to go Malik Neighbors, if I don't get my wide receiver, Scott, if I do not get my edge with my first pick, I'm trading back up. I am. And we're not doing this. It's going too fast to do trade-ups. I am trading back up into the first and getting Chop Robinson or Leatu Latu a little bit later. So I am doing that. So if I don't get my edge, let me be clear, because we're going to do this next week. We're going to do a first-round draft. We'll do it nice and slow. If I do not get my edge, I'm trading back up into the first. Rusty says, thank God Scott ain't the GM. Yeah, you know. We've only done this a zillion times. I took Neighbors last time. And Verse would be another good option. Again, good trade down options with those 3 guys. But if I do take Neighbors, if I do not get my edge at 8, I'm trading back up into the back end of the first and getting Chop Robinson on that one. This all looks very similar. We did this before. We went safety on this one. We took Tyler Nubin because we knew if we've got a first-round grade. I'm not a huge fan of Chris Braswell. I know I could use an extra DL with some flexibility to go inside, outside, especially in a 3-4. And Harry says, if you take Neighbors there, you can afford to not pay Pitts and pay Edge instead. Pitts is only on $10 million this year. And, looking at the tight end numbers, if he wants 20, he can go, unless he comes up with $20 million. 20 touchdowns this year. So I can go safety here again. And this is why I said about if I don't get my edge in the first, and I said we would do this. If I do not get my edge in the first, I do not like my options. Chris Braswell's not really he is. It's Justin that's not really an edge. I like Adisa Isaac. That's not a bad pick here, but I did go edge. Marshawn Nealon's okay. Braylon Trice, okay. Austin Booker, okay. There's nobody here that I'm like, ooh, yeah. I can fit at pretty much every single position. I can look at it and say there's guys that I like. Not once I get into the second round at edge, man. So if the Falcons don't come out of the first round with an edge through a trade up or taking them at 8, something's wrong. And Rusty says, you're a diehard fan if you get mad over a fake internet draft in March. Yeah, again, it is a fake internet draft. And what we use, I see the questions all the time. How many of these mock drafts are accurate anyway? None of them. All it takes is one trade up. If I've got 32 picks in a row, let's say I only missed by 1 because Atlanta traded up to 2 and screwed up, moved everybody down, and I got everything else in a row right, I still missed 30 picks. They're never right. What I like doing, what I like them for, is to know what kind of options you're going to have. Could Malik Neighbors fall to 8? Then what happens? Yeah, it could happen. Could I trade down? Who's going to be available in that range? Choice of 3 or 4 players that could be available. That's what I like doing these for. And, hopefully you've got, yes, I can make an argument for Malik Neighbors. Absolutely. I could trade down with the Colts and see if I can get Latu. Yes, I want to trade back up into the second if I don't get my edge in the first. All good options. I don't like my edge options there. Bo Nix, Bradwell, Fisk. This is where I've gone before. I really like Roman Wilson here. I really like Ricky Pearsall here. And this is why I'm getting at least another high second round pick if I trade down, because I like these guys a lot. The Falcons address safety in free agency. They signed Justin Simmons. Yeah, that's not actually a fact. So I'm just going to assume I like Braden Fisk in this spot. Another guy to look at. I love the wide receivers here. Ricky Pearsall, Adisa Isaac. Then I'm not going to go this far down the board here. So if I don't get my safety, I probably on this like Braden Fisk here the best. Inside outside flexibility, can play end in a 3-4. Can move inside and be a really good pass rusher in a 4-3 as he adapts to the game. So I'm going to go Braden Fisk in this spot. And then I've got back-to-back 74 and 79. And I'll tell you what, when I'm doing this, I take Spencer Rattler a lot. I do. I don't mind having Spencer Rattler here at 74, 79. I heard, someone say, he's Desmond Ridder 2.0. In the third round, that's not a bad thing. Desmond Ridder is a backup quarterback in the third round on, a cheap deal. That's not bad. So if I'm spending third round on a backup quarterback and I get a serviceable quarterback out of it, that's not a bad deal. So, and Spencer Rattler's got some upside here. This is a guy that was being talked about first round not too long ago. I like Spencer Rattler. I'm moving on from Heineke and saving the $7 million I saved from Heineke, and I'm giving it to Justin Simmons. Now I need a backup quarterback with some upside. I'm going to take Spencer Rattler here. I go to 79, and this is, again, these look familiar to a lot of y'all. We've done this enough times. I like my developmental offensive tackle, Patrick Paul, hell of an athlete. Check out youtube.com/Scott Kennedy, and you can check him out. And Cedric Jones, I like this one too. He says, Max Melton, please. Or Green. I like Max Melton here. We've gone Andrew Phillips a lot. I like Max Melton in this range. I think he is an upgrade over Mike Hughes, and you could move. You could move on from Mike Hughes and save some money to put into other spots. And and Stephen B says a serviceable quarterback doesn't move any needles. But what would move some needles is having a backup on a cheap contract that has some upside to him, and then moving on from $6.5 million in cap space of Taylor Heineke and signing Justin Simmons. That would be a decent move the needle type of thing. And you got to have somebody out there that's playing backup quarterback. Some discussion here. I think Patrick Paul already went. No, he's not. Good call. If Paul is there, where'd you go? Nathan Floyd. If Paul is there, that is a pick. I could go either way on this with a corner. I like Max Melton here if I was in trouble. And I didn't get any kind of corner, and I'm looking at Mike Hughes as my best option. I might be forced to go cornerback here, but I really do like, where was he down at 90? I really do like Patrick Paul as that developmental corner to hedge against the age of Jake Matthews and the liability that could be Caleb McGarry. So good shout on that one. I will go Patrick Paul. Now, can I find a corner? I like Sion Biaki there as well. Eichenberg at safety. And I don't know all of these guys nearly as well. So there's some guys there that I might miss on. Tyke Smith. I like him as well. Big corner back here. Cam Hart with some upside. I'm going to go that way for this draft to just change things up a little bit. He's a guy that can come in and compete. Brownlee. I must have missed him on here. Sorry. Jarvis Brownlee or Cam Hart. This is where I would ask Nick, which one do you want, Cam Hart or Jarvis Brownlee? I'm going to go Cam Hart on this one. I like the size there. Stephen B says, go big at quarterback or hope to find the next Brady or Purdy and Warner. No bend round quarterbacks, please. Yeah, what if that was him at third round? So, again, you got to have somebody there, and I don't want Michael Pratt in the fifth. Might get lucky. So again, I can seriously, I don't know about the rest of y'all. Stephen B is very adamant against this, but I would be okay with Spencer Rattler in the third round with 2 third-round picks. Using one of those on Spencer Rattler, I would consider that to be pretty good. We do this the same thing every time, and I'm going to do it again. Theo Johnson, if you check out his relative athletic score, it's like a 9.9, 260 pounds. 40-inch vertical leap, freak of an athlete. I'll put him on field goal blocking duties and get a 5th-round value out of him. I'm going Theo Johnson as my backup tight end. Special teams guy. We're running through some guys here. Hammer of a running back. Edge out of USC, Solomon Byrd. Don't know too much about him. Out of JMU. This was a guy I talked about earlier, but I kind of got this guy higher when I took Braden Fisk with inside-outside flexibility. Steel Chambers. This is where I kind of start looking at Tanner Bortolini too. I've got 2 picks. I might take him last with the last one if he's still there, and he usually is. Let me double up on cornerback. I know I could use a couple of guys, get younger at the position. And frankly, I don't know as many of these guys down here, and I do the same things over and over and take the guys I want. So I'm going to double up on cornerback here in the 6th round, and I'm going to take my super athletic offensive lineman last. Let me see here. Zach Powers is a good question. He says, does it worry you that Theo Johnson chose not to run the 3-cone? So many of the guys didn't, though. And I don't know why. Nick said he was paying attention. He says they didn't trust the surface or something. But so many of the guys didn't run the 3-cone. I'm interested in, and Theo did, though. He ran a 7.15 and a 4.19 shuttle with a 4.57. So maybe I'm misunderstanding this. Does it worry you that Theo Johnson chose to run the 3-cone? I think it proves he is fast in a straight line, but he knows he can't change direction. Zach, I think you're wrong on this one. He did run the 3-cone. I'm looking at his page right now. In fact, I'll just bring it over for you. Now that I'm sharing this screen, I'll bring it over to my second monitor. These are elite numbers. He came in at 6'6", 260 pounds. You look at his athletic score, and which puts him, it says third. I don't know who would be better than this. Maybe of all time. 4.7, 40-inch vertical, 10.5 elite, 7.15 elite, 4.19 elite for a 260-pounder. So I'm very, very pleased with his with his athletic testing on that one. So on that note, y'all, I'm gonna get out of here. We ended up going 75 minutes solo, and I'm supposed to do another podcast here a little bit. I have to gargle some tea or something here. So Bucks raised bolts. Missed this one a little bit. He says, "How far does Jordan Travis go?" I don't really know. I didn't really get to see him play at Florida State before he was hurt. So I don't know where he was, because I asked Nick that. I'm like, where did you think he was before the injury? And he says like a late day 2, early day 3 pick anyway. So he wasn't a super high prospect to begin with, according to Nick. So I don't know. It's not going to help him, but a day 3 flyer on him. Joe Milton, again, Stephen B., that might be the guy I also like in late day 3. Take a flyer on Joe Milton as your backup guy. So lots of options on there. So we are out of here. Thanks, everybody, for joining me on a Friday. I had a lot of fun. Enjoy the sun while it's still out in Atlanta, because it ain't going to stay out for much longer. I hope you all have a great weekend. I want to say thank you to my super chat superstars, Mark Schrader, Greg Elrod, Rusty coming in, and those of you who came in with some stars as well. Appreciate the support. We will be back on Monday. We'll hit on all this stuff again with different points of view, and we'll react to any news that happens over the next 72 hours. I hope you all have a great weekend. We'll see you next time.